Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Art Museum of Southeast Texas. My name is Caitlin Clay, and I'm the curator of exhibitions here at AMSET. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our quarterly program called Taste of the Arts. For those of you who are unfamiliar to our program, or this is your first time here, Taste of the Arts is a free program where we partner with Lamar's faculty and staff. And we basically match a faculty or staff member with an exhibition and have them come in and give a 20 to 30-minute talk, providing their perspective and insight on our current exhibitions. And I'm very pleased to have here today with me Andy Coughlan from Lamar. And after we hear Andy's talk, we do invite you as a part of the Taste of the Arts, literally, to join us for lunch at 2 Magnolias, which is our cafe space and restaurant space. And they will have a buffet. It is Dutch treats, so please bring your own debit or credit card. And we will continue the conversation with Andy after the talk in the galleries and the restaurant space. Now, before I go ahead and introduce Andy fully, I'd like to introduce our Executive Director, Andy Coughlan, who has a few announcements to make.
We're pausing for a brief commercial here. We have a fundraiser coming up. It's Go for the Gold, and it's really a fun fundraiser. And one ticket is $100, and it gets 2 people in for heavy hors d'oeuvres and drinks all night. Open bar, open bar. And it gives you an opportunity to win $10,000 in gold coins for first place. Second place is $1,500 in gold coins, and third place is $1,000 in gold coins. You don't have to be present to win. Your money goes to supporting programs like this. Even though it's free to you, it costs us money to produce it. So think that you're supporting the museum if you buy a Go for the Gold ticket. So again, it gets 2 people in. It is on March the 6th, which is a Thursday night. It was a month from yesterday, exactly a month from yesterday. Only 500 tickets will be sold, so you figure those odds are pretty good, 500 to 1, a lot better than the lottery, right? And the theme this year is really fun. It's Wicked. So it's follow the golden brick road and come dressed in green and glitter. So I'm going to pass out some invitations. And if you're interested in buying a ticket, snag me at the end, because I have tickets here too for sale. So I'm going to pass out invitations. You can also buy your tickets online. You can go to the museum website at www.amset.org and buy our tickets through jot form, or you can buy one from me, or let's see, do we have any board members here tonight? No, board members are also selling them, so if you have a friend that's on the board, they can also sell them. So please think about doing this. It's a lot of fun. And I'm going to turn it back over to Caitlin now. Does anybody have any questions?
Oh, Family Arts Day.
Family Arts Day is tomorrow from 10 o'clock until 2 p.m. We have some really fun art activities. And if you want to volunteer, we're always looking for volunteers. But if you want to just come and enjoy the day, it's going to be great. We're going to have several hundred people here from 10 o'clock until 2. It's like a mini fest. We do art activities that are related to the exhibitions on view. We've got some really cool ones this year. So.
Thank you, Lynn. And if you come to Go for the Gold, you can come check me out at the raffle table. We'll be raffling off some really great baskets of alcohol that our board members have provided. So I am happy to sell you those additional tickets when you arrive for Go for the Gold. Well, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our esteemed speaker. Andy Coughlan is a native of Brighton, England, and has lived in Southeast Texas for nearly 40 years. Coughlan has taught at Lamar University for 31 years, where he is advisor to the University Press, the student newspaper. He is also an award-winning journalist, specializing in arts and features for the Beaumont Enterprise. And if you have a moment before you walk out, he's actually printed his most recent article reviewing Japheth's exhibition, and you can find copies of it right behind Kathy Spence on the comment bookshelf. You can find a copy of his article there. He published the monthly arts magazine for 18 years and has earned multiple awards for his work, including National Arts and Entertainment Writing Awards. He has also been an editorial cartoonist for 35 years and is an excellent exhibiting painter.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so here are my notes. That's the only time you're going to see them because I can't hold them in my pocket. One of the things, I love this show. First of all, hopefully you love this show. If you haven't seen it before, see it, then see it again, then see it again. See, this is I think my 6th or 7th time to come see it. And one of the interesting things that I came down yesterday, and if you look at the review, you'll notice I didn't write much about this one, right? And I'm like, why didn't I write about this one? Because when I came to see the show the first time, I was blasted by this thing. And it just blew me away. And this thing, and I love this, but I didn't concentrate. Now, I can actually give you the full 30 minutes just on this thing, because coming back. And so I really do encourage you, not just for this show, but every exhibition you go see it more than once, because you're really going to get the nuances of these kind of things. So one of the things about this exhibition, I know that sometimes when these talks happen, people will pick an individual piece and we'll talk about it. The great thing about this show is I don't see this as individual pieces. Technically, it's 3 separate pieces, but I look at this whole show as being philosophically one piece. So I'll break it down in parts and the things that I like, and during the course I'll ask you a question, feel free to pipe up and say something. One of the things that I think really grabbed me first is I'm an immigrant. What a concept, you know. So it's like the first thing, before I even knew what the show was about, I got it. I actually recognized some of the numbers. So if you're not familiar with the show, I guess I should tell you the basics. Every number here corresponds to a form that the artists have to fill out. He's a Ghanaian native, so an immigrant to the country, and these are forms that you have to fill out. I was lucky 40 years ago. First of all, I married an American, so that cut out some of the paperwork, but I still had a lot of paperwork. It took months and months, and trips to Houston, and fingerprints, and forms, and triplicate. And of course, as he pointed out in his talk, a lot of those involve lawyers' fees, other fees. So you really have to work hard to come here, which most people, that's a price you're willing to pay to come here. And it's a great place. I like America. I like it very much. I wouldn't have lived here for 40 years otherwise. But it makes you realize that there's something, there's an old thing that says that when you were born here, but you really appreciate it when you have to work to be part of it, right? So I think there's a lot of discussion, I'm not going to get too political, but there's a lot of discussion about the role of the immigrant in society right now. People come here because they have a need, because they have a desire, and people are willing to work. Statistically, I was looking at some reports last night, Housing and Urban Development Report, as well as a Congressional report. Communities with high immigrant populations actually are economically strong. There's people who will honestly work hard, probably work a little cheaper, but also they pay taxes. So to see that these are people, look at all this, this is 140 different parents here. Each of these numbers corresponds to a form. That's work. You have to do the work to come in. The beauty of this piece then is to make it visually appealing. I think this is an absolutely beautiful piece. And what's so fascinating about it, it's one piece, it's 140 pieces, it's it's actually, I'm doing my math here, 420 pieces if you really want to think about it. Because each individual panel is its own piece, so that has to be made. Then the stoneware, the clay pieces, each have to be made individually. And then the fabric is attached to those. So there's 3 different layers in each different piece. The amount of work that goes into this, while you're still filling out the forms and doing all that kind of stuff, is amazing. I think, for me, the beauty of it is to look at, just a bit of a background if you don't know, I'm sorry, I'm presuming that people know these things. He is from Ghana, and he used to make clay in high school. He'd get clay, he'd have to go with his friends, they'd dig out the clay themselves, right? And then put it on, it was sort of full of stones and leaves and twigs and stuff. So it was real, authentic, out of the ground clay. And I think when you look at the shapes of some of these things, some of them look like they've literally been dragged out of the ground, pulled out, just bits of pieces. And then when he went to college, he was able to use authentic, art grade clay to make his work. And then he has since been in America and got his MFA in America. And he's, works with clay and sculpture and stuff like that. But these things are just, they're so fascinating. It's the individuality of each piece. So each piece is an individual. Think about it this way, each piece is an individual form, but you could also look at it that each piece is an individual person. Each piece has its own personality. You could literally take any one of these and have that one piece on the wall, and you're part of a collective, part of a whole. And I think that then starts to get into the whole sense of community, and what makes a community, what makes a national community, what makes a society, is the individual pieces, each with its individual unique feel, unique qualities that it brings to build it. After all, this country was built. I mean, it's Irish, Italians, all the way back, British, before me even, and so that's very interesting. I think also now he's using this kente cloth, which is the traditional African cloth. That's the colouring behind it. One of the things that I think is interesting, and I've heard this for a long time, I heard this when I was in England, this is just a uniquely American thing. Well, why aren't you being more American? Why aren't you assimilating more to the culture that you're coming into? I would argue that actually the things that we bring into the society enlarges the society, creates the society. I was listening to a fantastic, if any of you want to listen to a great podcast, The Rest is History, brilliant, anyway. But they were talking about Britain in the 70s compared to Britain now, and how it's so much more multicultural. It used to be a running joke. Well, the joke was always that people who say that, if it wasn't for the Americans, the British would be speaking German, seriously overestimate the English ability to learn a foreign language. But now you hear it everybody speaks a foreign language. Everybody knows the food, fish and chips sit alongside curry as the two great things. So it makes the society better. So bringing in this kente cloth behind, it's beautiful, it's colourful. When one joins another country, when one becomes part of it, it doesn't mean you have to reject your history, right? I'm still English, I still like soccer more than the NFL. It's okay. It doesn't make me less of a productive member of the national community. So the wooden parts here are made from pallets, right? And I don't want to talk about that too much because when we get to these parts, I want to talk about pallets and rolls of pallets. But I think there's another part of it for me as well, is not only does the clay work reference his upbringing and this rough-hewn clay, but it also, to me, seems like it's fragments of bits of things. This is maybe, my own work, I'm always obsessed with the history and layers and buried history. And so some of these things, it's like, is it a broken plate? Is it a broken piece of pottery? It's got the patterns on there that he's stamped on there. But some of them are just pulled, some of them are bent. Each one's individual. And I know that I was talking to Caitlin yesterday, the colours, he did set them up. This is the way the colours, if you notice, each section has these different colours. But within that, it's free to hang however you wish. Right? If you were hanging, if Marco was hanging this show, as long as those are there, you can put it anywhere you want. So each piece then has its own identity, its own life. If this goes to another gallery, it will be different. It's personal hanging. I think, Katie, if you don't mind me saying, I think, was this one here, USCIS? You were like, oh, I think this needs to be more at an A level. It's fine. But why, I like this one. But I also like this one. But would I move that around? You can. That's part of being part of the collective, is for each piece to respond in a different way, and each piece contributes to the overall effect in a different way. This is rather highfalutin, isn't it? Stuff like that. So the other thing too, so let's talk about this piece for a minute, which I really like. We'll make out of move. So this is really interesting. Like I said, why when I first came here did I not connect with this in a way that really I love this piece? I did, but I couldn't get past standing there and doing this to all of these pieces. What do you want me?
No, you're good.
So this is 3 completely separate sections, right, of the same story. I wonder, we were talking about this yesterday, I'm thinking, is this a story in reverse? My first thought was because we're used to looking at things from left to right, okay? That's the way we did things. We were Chinese, probably looking at it a different way. So my first thought was, oh, this is his home. This is and this is stoneware, by the way, right? And so to keep the cloth wrapped around things, it's very ordered, it's very structured. But I'm not sure, having talked about it, that that's really how it goes. First of all, so let's get back over to this piece. This section is arranged randomly. There's a sense of chaos. It's not lined up everywhere. And again, I presume one of these things too. But these all go roughly in here. Right? This is the area which you put things down. This is, these are heating elements from a kiln. Obviously, he works with clay. What does a kiln do? A kiln takes the clay, takes the wet clay, it transforms it. In my original notes when I was writing the review for this show, transformation, transition, transformation. This is the whole thing, and that's a lot of what this show is about. Right? Does anybody work in clay? Anybody? You guys work in clay at all? Yeah. So the kiln, but if I'm correct, Sandy, it's like, I was told as a painter, I paint something that doesn't quite work, I'll just cover it up and paint again. People who work in clay always tell me, you don't have a piece until it comes out of the kiln. And if you're lucky enough and it makes it out of the kiln, you're good. So that transformation is in some ways chaotic. You don't know. You have ideas, you want to try and make things work. Of course, if your skill level is good, you make more effort to make it work. But I like the idea of the fact that this got these found objects. And this was interesting too. So it's got wood and it's got stoneware. Which is which? Where is it? And how good is that? Even our illustrious curator yesterday said, I said, oh, is that wood? And she's like, wait a minute, I thought it was. And that's an important thing. This is something that's intimately connected with the work. It's still having to that's a good piece of artwork that is still making you think, what is this? Where is this piece? Where does the wood end? And the clay, I was standing there, of course, I was on my own, and I figured I was at the top, so I had a bit of leeway. I was leaning over, and I'm just looking, and I'm sure that's clay, but I'm not exactly sure. So I think that's, and it goes with the chaos of the thing. It's in the process of transforming. It's in the process of becoming something else. And then we get to this section, which again, all of this is clay. And what I like here is that I haven't really thought about this, is this is plaster, and there's footprints on the plaster. Right? My first thought is thinking about, and then Kate was talking about this could be surf, maybe this is surf. These are people, these are all figures, by the way. These are all people. These are all people in the process of becoming, of going somewhere, from somewhere, to somewhere. This is a lot darker. This is the ground, or is this water, or is this clay, or is this sand? There's footprints. Are these footprints of people that were there an hour ago? Have they been there for a long time? Is this an area, a geographical area, where it gets the same people over and over, people trying to get somewhere? And I know I'm not even looking at this and thinking about it now. I'm thinking about it historically. People have moved. People continually move to try and find a better way for themselves, a better life for themselves, whatever that takes. And I think that's an important thing. And one of the things about the saw blades that occurred to me was these are the heads on the figures, of course, and they've got these lovely little hats. The saw blades. This whole section to me is about danger. It's about struggle. It's about what it takes to go through these things, the effort it takes. In the same way that it takes a man with a pen or a computer, ages and ages and struggle to go through all of these forms. These are people who are physically transforming as they move through their geography. Right? I think it's interesting too, if you look at a lot of these, they look like they're broken, they're cracked, there's a fragile, at any moment, any of these could just collapse, possibly. Right? I don't know if those cracks are intentional or unintentional. Right? Is it something that happened while he was making them? I don't know. I don't really care. The reality is, if it happened while he was making them, even more. That's even more. There's a sense of control that he's trying to have, but you can only control so far. But the danger of these things, I feel like I want to reach out and something, but it'll bring your hand back, bleeding, cut. You've got your footprints all over. How many of these are going to make it to their destination? I think that's interesting. And then you get to this one, which is lovely and ordered and neat. And so from what I understand, this is the end. This is the peace. This is the color. This is the celebration. This is the, if you like, self-realization. This is the community, because they're all, that you can settle with, that you can find joy with. Right? I love the colors. I love they're very geometric sort of colors. I was told it's like a Mondrian kind of feel as well. That you've got these things. And again, this kente cloth, this celebration is like, we're in a place of joy, we're in a place of celebration. It's time to bring out the sense of self that comes from the cloth, which is, if you're familiar with the kente cloth, it is a symbol. It's very much a national symbol of pride, of identity, and stuff like that. And so there it is, in all of this celebratory stuff. It's this moment. It's like that part of yourself that you can embrace. That's what I thought was nice. Any questions on anything so far? I'll take questions at the end. I can prep one forever. I have no idea what the time is, so something will stop me at some point. I'm good. Okay, good. This is where I want to talk about patterns. Right? I'm a US citizen, so of course that comes with the whole thing. I'm a US citizen. One of the things that the gallery the artist was talking about was there's always that sense of what is it like to go through life, to always be asked that question. You're always at a moment, I think now more than ever, we're always at this moment of like, at any point could this change? You have settlement, you're trying to settle, you're trying to make a life, you're trying to do these things. But at any point, you could be, I'm a citizen, immediately comes with a sense of judgment, of fear, possibly. It's like you have to hold yourself. What do they mean by that? Am I in some sort of, is that some sort of threat? Is that some sort of thing? And that's just an underlying thing that happens, right? I remember when I was doing my forms, and going through, it's like take fingerprints of like, What are they going to find? I don't have a criminal record. Are they going to find anything? I don't know what they were going to find. They weren't going to find anything. I'm a good man. I'm a good boy. But it's like, but there's always, I think that's my nature anyway, is to constantly assume the worst, right? So there's this constant sense of dread that must come with this. And the title of the show, Burden of Proof, this constant need to prove yourself that you belong, that you are worthy, and stuff like that. So what he's used here, and again, these are palettes, really used palettes, and I love the concept of the palettes. Palettes are what? They're just a tool. It's just a thing you stick things on. How many of you had a pallet, somebody delivers something to your house, it's broken, you throw it out by the street, it's kind of rotten, it gets all around. Sometimes you might reuse it, take it to a coffee table. I've seen the reels. No, but but a pallet has no value. There's no real value, does it? Except now it does. Right? So you have this pallet. These pallets are used, they can go anywhere in the world. That's the whole point of it, right? Doesn't matter, it starts in Southeast Texas, gets on a forklift, goes on a truck, goes somewhere else, they've unloaded it, they put something else on the pallet, maybe it's shipped off back to Ghana or it's off to Europe. But at some point it'll break, and then it gets tossed, and it has no value. What he's done here, so it's like people. We're moving people around. People are migrating, they're transforming, they're transitioning to other places. But at some point, we do have a tendency, I think, to maybe dispose of them or see them as not having value. But what he's done here is he's added this pictocloth to it. Right? Suddenly, each of these palettes has a beauty, has an individuality. It has a personality. They look different. They're on a gallery wall, right? These are on a gallery wall now. Oh, guess what? They have value. We can't throw these pallets away. They're worth too much. They're too important. Are they different than the pallet that gets thrown that you just threw out up to the side of the road? At their core, they're the same. Right? But what he's done here is he's shown us that everything that you think has value, and I think that applies to people. How many times do we see things working in journalism? There's always a running joke, There was an old joke one time I saw in the newspaper, and it said 20,000 people killed, no Americans involved. And it's like that's a joke that we made. But it also is true. It's like, those 20,000 people didn't really have any value because they weren't us, right? But you also see things that says 20,000 people killed, 5 Americans involved. Suddenly, oh my goodness, there are Americans involved, or British people involved, the people like us. And I think that's an interesting way to look at immigration. Are these people like us? I think that the show argues, and I would argue, we are they. I mean, really, that's sort of, and there's just a sense of beauty here. There's such a sense of, the big thing at Grab 2 is like, these are pallets. These are old wooden pallets. He's not even trying to hide what they are. But they have such dignity. They have such poise and beauty. And they're utilitarian. They've worked. They've done things. They've been places. Right? Sometimes we have the power to see things that you haven't seen. Are they less than us? I don't know. I think overall, this whole show is just. I remember I walked in the first night of the opening. I walked in, and the word I keep using is visceral. I'm a woolly-headed intellectual. I love looking at things. Yeah, when you can tell the deep curiosity, it's an important part of blah, blah, blah. But sometimes I just want to walk into a room and have a piece of art just punch me, just hit me to make me stop and go, what? What am I looking at here? Why is this affecting me so much? And this work, the more I learn about it, and again, come visit several times, the more you look at it, the more you see, the more the deeper it gets, the more meaningful and impactful the work becomes. I think this is a stunning show. And I'm saying this is his first solo show, so we could be on the ground floor of something really important, seeing where he goes from here. So I'd like to, I have no idea how long I'm taking. I got questions? Anybody got any questions? Really? Come on, I couldn't say everything. Let's see.
Well, you're correct about when I walked in here the first time. When I walked in here the first time, I just thought, what the hell?
Oh.
Now I understand.
Oh. Well, that's good, yeah. Yes, Andy.
Well, let me tell you that I totally 100% disagree with your observation here. Those are Ghanaian. They're about to enter the danger field with the satellites. I've never seen anything scarier than that in my life. I've had too many satellites that I've picked up wrong and such. But that's when it's like going through the fire, but it's more visceral than that. Then you begin the change to Americanize. And when you get here, notice the difference between the first one here and the first one and the other end, like the red one or one of the ones in the back, how different they are in composition and presentation. This is how you become an American. You come this way.
That was my initial thought as well. I may have been misled. No, that's the art. And again, that's the beauty of it. It's fine. It's fine. I do want to say, actually, I want to talk just a little bit and remind you, this is called Compound House. And it actually leads into another part of the thing that I think is interesting. Where is the sense of order? See, I thought, that's what I said, left to right. But he's saying, this way, a little more maybe?
Well, you want the whole thing,
And
I want to.
and that's fine. It doesn't. The whole point is it doesn't matter. When I make a piece of art, it can mean exactly what I want it to mean, and if it means something different to you, that's absolutely 100% valid, right? And I just the compound house. The whole point of this is he was talking just generally. One of the things that's interesting, he said in Ghana, you'd have a compound house in Bangkok, like an apartment complex. People are all living on top of each other. People know everybody's business. You know everybody's names and stuff like that. And then you move to America, and people are more isolated. They are separated. You don't necessarily know these kind of things. I remember when I was a kid growing up, my mother would go to the shops. I'd be out playing in a busy street. It didn't matter, because Flower in the corner shop was there, or Eva was sitting out there, and I knew that everybody on the street was looking afterwards. And sometimes, I think part of what he talked about a little bit for that was, at some point you're like, oh my God, everybody knows my business. And then maybe you get to a certain point you're like, I wish a few more people knew my business. You know, you don't have that sort of, so be careful what you want. But there's also the differences of how attitudes and senses of community and stuff like that are kind of interesting. Darren, you have a question? I get my steps in. This is great.
It's maybe more of a comment than a question, but even though I helped install the exhibition, something that I'm picking up now is the aspect of community in all of the pieces. Like, it's really not about the individual. When you look at this piece, whether you see it as sort of like the process of self-actualization, or whether you see it as a decay. When you look at the palettes on the wall, it's all about community. You know, you see this process either of self-actualization not as one person doing it, but as a community doing it. Same with the palettes on the wall. You see it like it's not about like the one palette that's like beautiful. It's about this number of palettes, and in a way like they're all the same, but they're also all unique at the same time. to see the individual and welcome the community.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And I think I come back to this piece here. It's exactly what we talk about. Each of these pieces is a beautiful piece at a time. I mean, I take one of these home for myself now. It wouldn't diminish the individual panel. It has its own beauty, its own unique personality. But together, amongst the others, it has a greater power. I mean, I think ultimately it's probably what this show is really about. The power of the collective, the power of community, and the power of each disparate individual piece to create a more beautiful and more productive whole. That sounds really Pollyannish, but I mean, this is art. That's what art should be. It should be about the potential. What can we do? How good can we be? How strong can we be as a community? And I think possibly now, more than ever, the concept of being united, being a community to work for the common good is something that we should be striving for.
Well, this goes... Testing. Well, this is actually, since Dario brought up installation, this, I think a question to Dario Coughlan is, especially that wall there, is that something you decided to hang it like that, or did the artist say, I want that piece way up there, I want it arranged the way it is?
Thanks. Yes, that's a good question, Dennis. With our contemporary artists, we have a lot of conversations about how our exhibitions are installed within our spaces. I think Dario and I bring the perspective of we know the architecture of our space really well. So like 1,000, which is the title of this piece, it can only hang here. There's nowhere else in the museum where it would even fit. And so it's funny that sometimes curatorial decisions boil down to, well, this is the only spot. And then we make it work around that, right? That's where conversation begins, and then it becomes much more complex. And so for Are You a Citizen, which is the piece you initially asked about, Japheth had told me when we were initially having our conversations, I'm making these palette pieces. He had already made one or two, so I knew basically what they looked like. But he was going to make some more, and they're just going to hang in this general area. And so I hadn't even seen all of them until they showed up in the galleries. So I unwrapped all of them, and going back to what Andy said, they become special when they become artworks. So I don't treat them like a palette I would throw out by the side of the road. I handle them. I still have to wear leather gloves, not white cotton gloves, because they will give you splinters. But I would not lay them on the ground or anything. I unwrap them as they were artworks. And so they do still weigh the same amount that any palette does, so they're very heavy. So I initially laid them out on the floor, face side up. And then Dario, who is a super whiz on the computer, he helped me take pictures of them, and then we threw those into software on the computer where I could manipulate them around into different types of layouts, and then I printed out the ones I liked the best and brought them to Japheth and said, hey, which one do you like the best? And so he picked one, and then we moved them around on the floor in that configuration, decided, hey, maybe we scooch it a little this way or that way, and then he started installing them himself. I mean, he's a ceramicist, so he can carry really heavy things very easily. So I walked away for a minute and was like, I'll be back to help you install, and I come back and he's already hung 4 of them up. And I was like, whoa. And we had to get them up in the scissor lift to get them up really high, but we really like this idea of extending almost all the way up to the ceiling, which is something we don't typically do here at AMSET. on actual ceiling, which we do pretty frequently. And so it made this piece collectively so much larger, like more than just you looking at it at a center 60. It's come up over your head by being extended that high. It's down low. And I actually told Japheth I don't like this configuration, even though it's superb, because it does what he wanted it to do. He wanted it to be more organic in terms of the layout, versus you have 1 man thousand behind us. It's very geometrical. You know, it's very graphic in that you have these rows upon rows of very similar sized squares. And what happens when you remove a square in a configuration of squares is you see that negative space as a positive space, you see it still as a square, which is the difficulty we were running into with laying out this piece. And so that's why you have these pallets on the right side that are like pushed up really close to one another, because it's throwing off your eye, it's not symmetrical or balanced. Which, for those of you who have been coming to my shows, you know I really like a balanced show. I really like symmetry. I like the eye to move around, but I really like a clear balance. And so that's why I don't like this wall, is because every time I look at it, I want it to be more balanced. But it is excellent because it does exactly what we intended it to do, which is not to look very geometric like 1 man thousand. So that was a really long description, but it's kind of an insight into like the curatorial practice and some of the things that go into painting some of these pieces. Does anyone have another question for Andy or for Darla or myself? We're happy to talk more about the show. It took us 18 days in a row to put up these 2 exhibitions. We drove all the way to Edinburgh, where Japheth lives, which is 2.5 hours from Portland. Picked these up, brought them back, and then we unwrapped all of them. It's about an hour and a half from McAllen, so I actually had to go through a border checkpoint to get these artworks here, which was also very interesting because I'd never done that. And they do ask you, are you a citizen? Which is a very loaded question, depending on what your status is. For me, it's easy, because I was born here, so I have no worries. But for many other people, it is a much more difficult question to answer.
One last question.
Yeah.
I have one last question. When you went down to pick them up, did you load the boxes on pallets?
We use a pallet jack.
Alright, well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I'll be around.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you for everyone joining us online. We have entered into the second part of our program, so if you are hungry and you haven't had lunch, please join Andy and myself in the cafe space. They are still having their buffet,